This is the North Africa Journal, and thank you for downloading this podcast. For more podcast information and user rules, please visit north-africa.com/podcast.
Well, now, Alessandro Bruno is the deputy editor of the North African Journal. He joins us now in Toronto. Alessandro, very good to have you along to talk about this morning.
Good morning.
Now, with this curfew in effect, what are you hearing from your sources this morning about what's going on beyond the pictures that we're showing our viewers today from Egypt?
Well, the important thing, I think, to note is that the head of the Egyptian Armed Forces was in consultations in Washington for the past 2 days. He arrived in Cairo last night, and I think he arrived in Cairo with an important message for President Mubarak, because the most important institution to watch in Egypt is the army. If the army decides that it has no longer any confidence in Mubarak, Mubarak has no choice but to step down. Mubarak himself was a pilot in the Air Force, and most Egyptian presidents, the presidents before him, Sadat and Nasser, were also from the military. So the military is also the main beneficiary of the billion dollars of aid that Egypt gets from the United States. And the army is also the guarantor of the peace agreement with Israel. Basically, if the army doesn't want you, you have to go. And I'm pretty sure that the message from Washington is to Mubarak to step down.
Are you able to explain for us why the Egyptian people seem to have such animosity toward their police force that is not reflected in their feelings on the military?
Because the police force, particularly the security force, that is the force that protects the presidency and the Mubarak's regime, the secret police. They check your conversations, they monitor your movements. The secret police is really the target. It was also the main target in Tunisia. Whereas even there, the army played an even more responsible role than it has in Egypt so far. It really stayed back. And once Ben Ali realized he had no longer the support of the army, he knew he had to go. We'll see if Mubarak is wise as Ben Ali, because if he stays, he's only going to protract the inevitable and create more violence. I don't think there's any route for Mubarak to go other than out right now.
The curfew that was placed, 9 a.m. Eastern, what's the purpose of that?
Well, the curfews are a regular feature of Egyptian society. Egypt has had so-called emergency laws ever since Mubarak came in. The emergency laws were initially launched to control the excessive elements within the Muslim Brotherhood who were held responsible for the murder of President Sadat in 1981. Now, again, Sadat was murdered in 1981, and Egypt is still under emergency laws stemming from that event. So that tells you also why the police has been the target of such hatred from the population, whereas the army has been treated. In fact, the army and the protesters have had overall a very good relationship over the past during these protests. I think if the army can hold it together, then a lot of violence can be prevented.
Where do you think today's events are going to take us?
Well, I mean, if you had asked me, last week that Mubarak, that they told me that I was going to come here to talk about Mubarak stepping down, I would have said no. But I have to say, right now, I don't see any other choice. Eventually, my guess would be that the army will pick an interim president. The army will have to choose it and ask Mubarak to step out. And then the interim president will take the country to elections in September. The presidential election was already supposed to take place in September.
Alessandro, let me ask you before I have to let you go.
Yes.
At the end of this day, which seems to be a very tumultuous day, of all 5 days that have so far seen unrest in Egypt, this seems to be a pinnacle day for something to happen. Is that what your sources are telling you? Do you get the sense from your conversations with them that we could, in fact, see the near 3-decade rule of Hosni Mubarak end today in Egypt?
Well, I don't know. It could. Today is definitely a pivotal day. People I've spoken to are as weary as I am. We don't know, but certainly what is definitely happening is that Mubarak can no longer be president. The people could care less that he's fired his government. They don't want his government to fall down. They want him to fall. So, and I'm sure given the fact that the head of the armed forces was in consultations in Washington, and the fact that even Washington now is saying we are standing with the people, that's a clear message to Mubarak: leave. So, we're seeing 1989. You remember 1989 in Eastern Europe? I think we're seeing that now in the Middle East, and today could start that process.
It's great to have this kind of insight from you. Alessandro Bruno, Deputy Editor of the North Africa Journal. Thanks very much for this, Alessandro.
Thank you.
This was the North Africa Journal podcast. Thank you for listening.